microphone muted unless there's the one speaking. We'll also be taking questions, I believe, in the chat. We have 32 people, so we might also be able to do some hand raising at some point. I gotta hit this thing to get it out of the way here. There we go. If you need to move around, it always is helpful to stop video so that we don't see the screens moving around. But I think we're probably going to go to speaker view or pinned view at some point. So you'll see the speaker on a big screen here. And so now what I want to do is turn it over to Anne Marie Pendergast, who is the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County Presidential Steering Committee. And she will introduce our guest speakers for tonight.
Sorry, I'm still admitting people. I'm Anne Marie Pendergast. I use the pronouns she and her. I am on the steering committee of the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County and also on the Redistricting Committee. The League of Women Voters, I know that we have some non-league members here tonight. Welcome. The League of Women Voters is proud to be a nonpartisan organization, and that means that we never oppose or support any candidates or any political parties at any level of government. There is always some confusion on that. What we do is work on issues that are of concern to our members and to the community. Specifically, we encourage informed and active participation in government, and we work to help people understand public policy, but we also educate and advocate for policy. So if you have any questions about that, put it in the chat and we'll get back to it. Tonight we have a presentation about redistricting, and we're very lucky to have Stephen Elliott, who's going to speak first, and then we're going to have Miley Zarinski from the League of Women Voters of New York. Steve is a political scientist, a retired legislative staff member, and a redistricting expert, and a current member of the League of Women Voters of Albany County. And I'm going to give it over to Steve, who's going to share his screen, and hopefully that will all go well. Thank you for coming, Steve.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Let me get the screen up here. Share. And now I go to, oh, come on, get out of the way. Always something in the way when you do these things, you know. Come on, you, go away. I'm trying to unhide slideshow. And now we go from the beginning. Slideshow from beginning. There we go. Can everyone see it? Okay. Well, tonight I will be talking about the census and redistricting and how they impact Saratoga County. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about, pardon me, about how it affects you and what you might be thinking about doing next. Now, the census, when it was first established, the purpose was to apportion the House of Representatives. Now, the word census or the word apportionment and redistricting are often used interchangeably, but apportionment is really the allocation of seats, deciding how many seats there will be. And in this case, apportionment is used to determine how many seats New York will have in the House of Representatives. We currently have 27 seats, but due to the findings of the 2020 census, we're going to drop to 26 seats. Here is a map showing the nation as a whole. The states that are in purple are all states that have lost one seat in this current round of apportionment. New York dropped to 26, California dropped to 52, etc. And then the states that are in green have all gained, the light green states have all gained one seat, and then Texas gained 2. And this has been a pattern for quite some time, of course. Back in the 40s, New York had 45 members of the House, and we have steadily lost members every census since then. The second purpose of the census is to help with redistricting. Now, that's what goes on within states. So we're talking about redistricting congressional districts, state senate districts, assembly districts, and also most county legislatures, and some municipal councils and boards. Tonight, I'll only be talking about Congress, the state Senate, and the Assembly. Here is a map of the current congressional districts in the state. As I said, there are 27 of them. The ones in our area are the 21st, which is all of the Adirondacks in the North Country, the 20th, which is the Capital District, and then the 19th. Here's a map of the current state Senate districts. There are currently 63, and the pattern historically is to start numbering at Montauk and then go out until you reach the far western edge of the state. And so I hope and presume that that's how the final maps will be done this round, because it certainly makes it much easier if you start from a common reference point. And we have, there are 2 Senate districts that cover Saratoga, and I'll be looking at those a little bit more closely in a moment. And here are New York's Assembly districts. There are 150 of them. That number is fixed in the state constitution. Once again, they start in Montauk and they number out until they get to the western part of the state. Here in this area, well, Saratoga actually has 4 assembly districts that cover a part or another of it. There's a piece of 108th that comes right up here into Waterford, which is mostly otherwise in Troy and Albany. Then there is 113th, 114th, and the 110th. Now, the census, when it was done in last year, determined, pardon me, that the population of the state had grown 4.2%, or over 800,000 people in the 10 years since the 2010 census. So that brought our total population up to 20,201,000. Now, the interesting pattern is that while urban areas increased population, rural areas have been steadily losing population, and that pattern continued this round. Here is a map from the Census Bureau showing population density in New York's counties. As you would expect, the darker colors show the upstate counties with larger populations. So there's Erie, there's Monroe, Onondaga, Albany, and Schenectady. And then here's Saratoga, and Saratoga has been growing quite rapidly, especially relative to the counties around it, although it's still not as densely populated as Schenectady and Albany to the south. And the population density increased rather dramatically in the lower Hudson Valley, in New York City, and on Long Island. Given the growth that we saw in the last 10 years, the new district population targets have changed since last round. This time, the ideal population for congressional district will be almost 777,000 people. And this is one of the easier calculations that we deal with in redistricting. You simply take the total population of the state and divide it by however many districts there are for the chamber. So we simply took the total population divided by 26, and that gave us the ideal size for a congressional district. In the case of the state Senate, we divided the state population by 63 districts. That's assuming that we remain at 63 districts for the Senate. Quite frequently, the state Senate will grow by a seat or 2, depending on how certain provisions of the state constitution are interpreted. And then the state assembly, which is fixed by the constitution at 150 seats, that ideal population is 134,000, a little bit more. The state Senate was 320,000. Now, those are ideal populations. When it comes to creating a congressional district, the federal courts have been quite strict in interpreting that, and basically all the districts will be very close to the ideal number unless there's some other factor of overwhelming importance comes up, and that rarely happens. In the case of the state Senate and the Assembly, districts can vary by as much as 10% traditionally, 5% plus or take from the ideal population. So when you look at Saratoga in particular, the total population of Saratoga and in 2020 was 235,509. That was an increase of nearly 16,000. And when you look at it in terms of districts, that means that Saratoga as a whole deserves 1 3/4 assembly districts, about 3/4 of a Senate district, and almost 1/3 of a congressional district. And I provided a table below to show how voting age population, total population, and ethnic group population had changed over the last 20 years. Now, when you look at Saratoga County in terms of the current districts, you're starting on the left, you'll see that the 108th down, use my pointer, down here is a bit of 108th in Waterford. The 112th is wholly contained within the county plus a bit of Schenectady County. And then 114th is has a bit of the northern part of Saratoga plus a large area above it. And 113th has a lot of the eastern part of the county plus a lot to the east of that. Now, Saratoga County as a whole is rather well broken up when it comes to assembly districts. When it comes to current Senate districts, it's not quite so bad. There are 2 districts, and this is the line that divides the county at the moment. 49th over here, 43rd Senate district there. And then when it comes to congressional districts, there are 2, the 21st to the northern part and the 20th to the south. And the thing to realize here is that the green districts, the green tinting in these 3 maps indicates where these districts are currently over ideal population. So that means in the case of those assembly districts, they're actually going to have to shrink in some fashion because they simply have too many people, too many citizens, too many people in them right now. Whereas any area that's a amber color is underpopulated in terms of this district that we're talking about. And so those districts are going to have to grow. Now that doesn't say anything about the population of the county per se. We're simply talking about how it affects the individual kind of district we're looking at. So basically, in the case of the assembly, this one is going to get smaller in some fashion, but then it also, of course, the borders are probably going to be dramatically changed anyways. So, well, I'll move on and show you. So the other thing we need to consider about the 2020 census is how it relates to New York's continuing partisan shift. Because rural population is declining, and because those areas tend to be more likely to have Republican majorities and Republican representatives, the fact that those areas are declining means that the districts that currently represent those areas are probably going to have to grow to make up for that declining population in order to get up to the ideal population that any district has to have now. Now, that when I say that rural populations are declining, that is a pattern nationwide and in the state as a whole, but that doesn't mean that every single rural area is going to reflect that pattern. So when you look at it, a district, you need to look at local patterns more closely. Here is a map, 2 maps of New York State. The one, the one on the upper right, I have to move my chart out of the way here, is the percent change in population for New York counties. And it shows the amber areas are all counties that have declined in population, the darker amber declining more than the lighter amber. And the grayish areas are all counties that have grown in population. And you'll note that Saratoga is in that dark color gray, indicating that relative to the counties around it, it has grown quite dramatically. Now, this is Hamilton County, which is also dark gray, but I would discount the importance of that because Hamilton is so sparsely settled that even a minor change in population will have a big change in percentages. So when you look at the map on the left, it's the partisan lean in the 2 presidential elections, the average of the 2 presidential elections in 2012 and 2016. The blue areas, as we gotten used to indicating, show Democratic populations and Democratic lean, I should say. And then the red areas are Republican lean. As you will see, the upstate city pattern is reflected in this distribution, as well as the Ithaca area here. And interestingly, this area of the Catskills and this area of the Adirondacks are all turning blue, which is an interesting development when it comes to how the parties will be interested in doing redistricting in this round. Of course, the lower area, lower Hudson, New York City area is quite dark blue, and then the usual pattern that we've grown to expect in Long Island. Although out here in the tip, it's becoming a blue area too. Here is Saratoga County, showing, this is a close-up of that same map on the right here, showing the vote share. As is been traditional for some time, the rural areas and northern areas of the county are more heavily Republican leaning. The interesting thing is that basically there's the corridor coming up here on the Northway that is the growing Democratic area. Here is the same, here's Saratoga County, but using a different database. This is from the Redistricting and UWeb site, and this is the vote share in 2020. In this case, Republicans are amber again, and Democrats are blue, but you'll see that it seems to be somewhat stronger association in the central corridor, we can call it, for the growing Democratic vote in the county. And the map on the right is the racial distribution in the county. Now, this, I turned up the tone on this as far as you could to show concentration of minority voters in the county. And you'll see it's basically, there just are no strong, strongly minority, areas with strong minority voters in Saratoga. So as a matter of designing districts, voting rights issues are probably not going to be an important consideration in the county. Now, before I go on, are there any questions in the chat yet?
No questions yet in the chat.
Okay. All right. So I'll go on now. I'll start talking about the our current Independent Redistricting Commission. We have a commission that was set up by the 2014 amendments to the state constitution that for the first time is, well, it's created a somewhat different process than that has been used in the past. We currently have officially a two-part process in New York State. The first part is done by the Independent Redistricting Commission. As I said, that commission was created by the 2014 amendments to the Constitution. The commission is empowered to hire staff and consultants, conduct public hearings, and then it is charged with drawing maps for Congress, the State Senate, and the Assembly. They released draft maps on September 15th, and I'll get into those in a moment. And then they are charged with giving the legislature a final set of maps as soon as January 1st, but no later than under current provisions of the Constitution, no later than the 15th. And then the other part of the official process is the role of the state legislature. The legislature appoints 8 of the 10 commissioners. And those, when I say appointed, the legislative leaders are the people who are charged with appointing those commissioners. They fund the commission, they provide administrative support, and then ultimately they either approve or reject the commission maps. And if the commission maps are rejected twice, then the legislature can enact plans on its own. The current deadline for doing that is in February next year. Now, when it's all done, the state legislature will have enacted 2 new redistricting laws. One law will be for the Assembly and Senate districts. Under the terms of the state constitution, those plans must be done in one law. The other law will be for the New York's congressional districts. Both laws will apply for 10 years until 2032. And that's unless a court decides otherwise, if a court intervenes and based on a challenge to districts, then the court will determine when the districts start and when what the duration of the plans will be. And if the legislature fails to act entirely, then the court can step in and do it as well. Our current congressional plan is in fact a court mandated plan. That happened in 2012 and the legislature failed to create a congressional plan. And I can say from past experience that litigation is quite likely no matter who draws the maps and under what conditions. So I would don't be surprised if litigation pops up this round. Here are the current members of the Redistricting Commission. I've separated them into the current teams, its current size. So there are 5 Democratic members. There are 4 of the appointed members plus 1 person who was chosen by the commissioners and is believed to support the side who chose them. And so currently the commission is split 50-50. And the proof of that is that we had 2 sets of plans come out September 15th, and which I will discuss in a moment. Now, in addition to the procedural rules found in the process, there are a number of map drawing rules. The big 3 that people need to keep in mind basically can't be changed are single member districts, equal population, and creating districts that are contiguous, which meaning all pieces of them must touch. Then there's 7 redistricting rules, map making rules that are much more flexible. Although they're all found in the Constitution, there's no way of deciding which one takes precedent over the others. And the principle of preserving communities of interest is just one of those 7. And if it's convenient, this is my personal view, if it's convenient for map drawers to preserve communities of interest, they'll do it. But if some other criteria becomes more important to them, then that criteria will outweigh community of interest. And there's no way of telling until you look at the maps. So we have New York's, what I call the unofficial redistricting process. The Independent Commission is split on partisan lines, contrary to what the intent of the reformers 10 years ago was. It has inadequate resources, and its staff was only recently hired. Its public hearings to date have only focused on community of interest issues and not the full set of redistricting concerns. The commission has produced 2 sets of competing maps, and the one's called the letters maps, and the other's the names maps, and they came from the 2 sides of the commission. And that fact has made it very difficult for people to go forward with how to respond to the maps. And then finally, the commission acts as a shield for the legislature. And that is something that's not in their official function, but that's simply a matter of fact, that the more the public at large observes and responds to what the commission is doing, the less they watch what the legislature is doing. And that's particularly important because the legislature still has substantial control of the process. And in this round, for the first time in many years, the Senate and Assembly majorities are controlled by one party, in this case, the Democratic Party. The leadership, unfortunately, seems to be untested in the redistricting process. And a fair number of people seem to be indicating that they'd be perfectly happy for the commission process to fail entirely, because if that happens, then either it will go directly to the legislature or to the courts. And then the last thing to consider is that the leaders of the legislature don't need the commission. They have their own redistricting staff. They have their own redistricting tools. They've had them all along for decades. They're in-house, they're independent, they're not public. And so the leaders are doing their own mapping right now. I know they did that because I used to be one of those staff people. The other part of New York's unofficial redistricting process to remember is that no matter who draws the maps, they can never be completely fair or neutral in all respects. It's impossible to maximize all the rules at the same time. The rules often contradict each other. The more rules, the harder it is to balance them all. And the fact is, the more rules, the easier it is to gerrymander, because The map makers can pick and choose which of those rules they're going to say is important. And as I mentioned before, there's no way to indicate which one is more important. So as I say, the more rules, the easier it is to gerrymander. And that leaves the task of reformers. They need to unmask the biased use of rules whenever they can identify them. The National League of Women Voters has established what I think is a very useful hierarchy of approaching redistricting criteria. The first and most important is the equal population, then goes down to geographic contiguity, promotion of partisan fairness, and then after that, preservation of communities of interest, respect for boundaries of municipalities, etc. And although I think this particular hierarchy needs to be adapted to New York State, I do agree with the general idea of how they have made the hierarchy up, how they've set it up. So when we look at the Independent Redistricting Commission, the reality is we've got two sets of maps out there. The letters maps came from the Democrats, as far as anyone can tell, since no one on the IRC seems to be admitting what happened. And then the names maps come from the Republicans. So here is a screenshot from the website 538 of New York's congressional districts as presented by the names plan on the left and the letters plan on the right. One of the interesting thing in the letters plan, which comes from the Democrats, all of North Country, including a lot of, well, the northern part of Saratoga and the eastern part of Saratoga, is in the 21st, what we currently think of as the 21st, whereas the names plan splits that northern area in order to make a strong Republican district off to the western Adirondacks and central part of the state. Overall, the names plan maximizes Republican strength better than the letters plan maximizes Democratic strength, which is an interesting outcome. Unfortunately, the 538 only does this sort of analysis at the congressional plans. They didn't do it for the state Senate or assembly maps yet. Now, when we look at Saratoga County, the congressional districts in the county, the map on the left here shows the current district with a boundary line between the two districts running across the county. Saratoga Springs being down here in the, I don't know what I say, the 20th, and the northern part in the 21st. So that's Paul Tonko down here and Lee Stefanik up here. The letters plan, which comes from the Democrats, basically maintains that east-west line to the county. Whereas the names plan, let me move that other way so I can look at it myself, the county is whole. And it is in the North Country district. Now, the thing we want to keep an eye out for is where the incumbents are in these plans. Lee Stefanik, I believe, lives over here in Schuylerville, and Paul Tonko lives over here in Amsterdam. So in this plan, they're together, and in this plan, they're together. Whereas in existing current districts, of course, they're separate districts. That particular combination is going to make a lot of people upset for lots of reasons. And so I imagine you'll hear a lot about that as time goes on. Here is the Saratoga County, the state Senate districts. The current Senate plan splits the state, splits the county rather, north-south, and that is the black line dividing them between the two. The letters plan basically maintains that split, whereas the names plan splits the county into three Senate districts. And I can't give any good rationale for that other than when they did, they must have thought that combining Saratoga with Amsterdam would create a stronger district here. Perhaps they were thinking they were going to be packing Democratic voters this way in order to create more Republican districts elsewhere, but that would simply be speculation. And here is the Assembly District maps. Here are the current districts on the left. There are 4, as I mentioned. The letters plan, I believe, reduces it to 3. And these purple lines are the divisions of the district. And none of them are entirely contained within the county. And then the names plan similarly has 3 districts. I think, no, I'm sorry. So that's Saratoga. That's Schenectady, pardon me. That's Saratoga. So it appears that there are 3, but they're not quite as coherent as they might be. So the other thing we want to recall is that because the Independent Redistricting Commission is split, and because there's a good chance that they are going to fail in their charge to present a unified set of maps to the legislature, there's a fallback group. It's called the Legislative Task Force on Demographic Research and Reapportionment. It's been there since the 70s, and it is not split evenly along partisan lines. And it is, in this case, it is controlled by Democrats because the Democrats control both the Senate and the Assembly majorities. And so they control the task force. And that is a change from past years. The task force actually has 2 roles. It is literally a demographic research group that works with the Census Bureau to create the data files that are required by anyone who's doing redistricting in New York. And then it's also a group that serves as the public face of the leaders' activities in redistricting. If the current Independent Redistricting Commission fails, then at least the public part of the task is probably going to fall to the Legislative Task Force, that's known as LAT4. And that is, as I say, completely controlled by the Democrats at this point. So what's next? The IRC hearing for the Capital Region will be November 1st. And on November 2nd, the day after, the voters will go to the polls and determine a number of proposals that are on the ballot. And Proposal 1 would alter the reapportionment or the redistricting process in New York. And in a rather dramatic fashion, depending on how that proposal goes, the IRC will submit its maps either January 1st or the 15th, assuming it does present maps. And then the legislature will accept or reject those maps in January and February. And so that is the information on the upcoming IRC hearing. And the website says that you can sign up as late as October 30th for the November 1st hearing. And it will be, apparently it will be in person at Page Hall at SUNY Albany. Now, with regard to that ballot proposal, Proposal 1, it's very complicated. It's got many minute changes to the existing constitutional provisions, some of which are clearly needed, some of which are more questionable. There is a lot of debate going on, a lot of confusion about that provision, about that proposal. We won't get into it tonight because it is so complicated, but what I've provided here are 4 good sources of information on that proposal. And I really encourage you to look at them and take a look at the provisions and make your mind up about how to vote on this. It's an important, it's probably the most, in the short term at least, the most important thing you'll be voting on November 3rd. The first 2 sources, the New York Law School and Ballotpedia, are background information and detailed information on what the proposal contains. The League of Women Voters has a position on a proposal, and you can see it at this website. And then Common Cause has its view on the proposal, and you can see it at that. And with that, I am done with my presentation. Are there any questions?
We do have one question in the chat, and before anyone's raised hand goes up, a league member points out that the League of Women Voters advocates that districts be compact. Is that in any of the laws?
It is in the Constitution, but there is no legal standard for compactness. And compactness is hard to deal with in a state like New York because we are not a square shape with square municipalities like, say, Iowa. We have pointy islands, we have rivers and mountains, and all kinds of geographic difficulties in making a compact map. And I might add that I personally feel that compactness is probably the least important of the criteria, because although there's a certain aesthetic goal of making it appear compact, that there's very little correlation between compactness and being unbiased. You have to look elsewhere to determine whether a district is biased. In fact, some of the most compact districts that I ever drew were also some of the most biased. So sometimes compactness, an oddly shaped district is simply odd because no one really wanted the areas that district has. They're leftovers. It happens quite often, as a matter of fact, upstate. There are definitely places in New York City where districts are oddly shaped, and they all bear close investigation, but it's not necessarily for partisan reasons, or even, you don't know until you look at it, at the details.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? We'll have an opportunity after Millie speaks for more questions from either presenter. I think there we go. Next, I'd like to introduce Miley Zarinski. Millie is from the League of Women Voters of New York, and they are an organizer with the League that has been focused on redistricting. And they are going to mostly talk about how you can get involved. And I just wanted to point out to everyone that I saw a funny sign that said, redistricting, it's going to affect you whether you understand it or not. And that just sticks with me all the time. So Millie's going to help us understand the process a little more.
Hi, everyone. I am going to bring up my PowerPoint. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Can everybody see? Wonderful. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Millie. I am an organizer with the League of Women Voters of New York State. And today I am going to give you guys an overview on how to prepare and submit your redistricting testimony to the IRC. So let's get into it. So the first thing that you're going to want to know how to do before you write your testimony is how to look at the maps that you're going to critique. So there are three types of maps, the Congressional Maps, the State Senate, and the Assembly Maps. And there are 2 versions of each map for a total of 6. So there are going to be 6 versions of the maps that you're going to want to look over, get to know, sort of cozy up to before you get into writing your testimony. So the first one that you were going to want to look at for Congress are the macro issues. So you're going to want to see if your county is split, if your district is drivable. You don't want to have to drive 5 hours from one tip of your district to the end of the district. You're going to want to know what other counties or areas are in your district if your county is split. And most importantly, you want to know if the communities that you are grouped in with have interests in common with your community. For the Senate districts, you're going to want to look at the macro and micro issues, so big and small. So again, you're going to want to look to see if your county is wholly within the district, and if not, where exactly it's been split. And then you're also going to want to look again to see what other counties are included in that. And once again, if they share the same issues and interests that you do. For Assembly, these are way smaller districts, so you're only going to be looking at the micro issues. So you're going to want to see if your locality is split. So your neighborhood, is your street cut in half? That's really important. You're also going to want to see if the things that you care about, your school, the park that you take your kids on Sunday, the Target that you like to shop at, are also in your district, because they're also a part of your community and they also mean a lot to you. And most importantly, you're going to want to see who else is in your district and who are in the districts around you. So basically, if you're sandwiched in between two districts, you're going to want to look at the two districts that you're sandwiched between and sort of compare and contrast. So if you were to be grouped with one, which one you would prefer to be grouped to? Maybe they have the same interests as you, as compared to the other one on your other side. So now that we've got that out of the way, we are going to write our testimony. So there are some 4 steps that we're going to follow. Step 1, we're going to analyze. So you want to analyze both your current district and the proposed districts. So you're going to want to look at your current district and identify it. You're going to point out where you live. You're going to make a note of who else lives in this district. And you're going to, once again, see where all the things you like are, that park, that Target, perhaps. And most importantly, you're going to think about the proposals and think about if these proposals will improve your representation. That's extremely important, and that's what the whole redistricting process is about at the end of the day. So the next step, you're going to hypothesize. This is fun. I put together a little graphic to sort of visualize the thinking and logic that you can do when you're on this step. So the first thing that might come to your head could be a thought like, these district lines lump me in with a community that doesn't have the same needs that I have. And your next thought in that process could be that, that community has a larger share of the district than my community does. So they're in the majority, I'm in the minority. And so you could conclude then that a new legislator coming in will care more about those people in the majority than they would me, who is in the minority. And you can conclude with that your community will have bad outcomes as a result. So step 3, this is the fun step. This is where you get to say exactly how you feel about these proposed district lines. You get to criticize them. So this is an example of a criticism. You start off with, that community next to me has dissimilar values and I don't want to be lumped in with them. That community also doesn't work or shop at that Target that I really like, and they don't spend time in my community. So I don't really see a point in having them lumped in with me. And then, that community doesn't have the same issues that my community has. And you can conclude with that you don't want to have this in your district. You don't want to include that area in there. Or instead of criticizing, you could praise the IRC. You could say, I really, really, really love your idea. This community has similar values to mine. This community works and shops and goes to that park I like and goes to that Target all the time in my community. And this community also has the same issues that mine does. So I do want you to include that in my new district. It's up to you. So another thing that you're going to want to sort of think about when you're writing your testimony are the big picture problems. So, we've been focusing a lot on things like the issues that you may feel similar to within communities. This is like things like my street is split in between 2 different districts, which doesn't make any sense. Why would one area of the street be in one district and the other area be in another district? Or, the proposal isn't compact. It's very long. I would have to travel 2 hours. I've never had to do that before. So those are big picture problems that you can also put in your testimony. So step 4 is synthesizing. You're going to put everything together. So you're going to take your analysis, your hypothesis, and your criticism, and you're going to turn it into a testimony. So I'm going to use the example on these top lines right over here. So your analysis is that the proposed plan cuts my community, town, city, or village in half. So your hypothesis would be that the proposed maps may hurt me by splitting my community of interest. And your criticism would be that you don't want to be included in that community's district. So that would be your beginning, middle, and end to your testimony. So just some key ideas that you might want to focus on in your testimony. You might want to focus on keeping your community together. You don't want things split up. You might want to focus on eliminating weird lines, wiggles, hooks, and or shapes that you might see when you're navigating these maps, balancing and or separating low and high income areas. Maybe they don't have as much in common as the IRC map makers believed them to, making sure that your district is easy to travel, and also making sure that your district is competitive. So those are some things that you might want to focus on in your testimony as well. So just some tips, you're going to want to pick one map to focus on for each office. So you might want to focus on the letters assembly map in a specific area in there. The reason for this is that you have 3 minutes. You want to make the best testimony that you possibly can. You're also going to want to keep it brief and to the point. Again, 3 minutes isn't a lot of time. It goes very quickly. So you're going to want to put together the best testimony. So that means that you can keep your bio and your background very, very short. You're also going to want to practice, again, with the 3-minute rule, and be specific about what your current district number is. And finally, you can include images of the map you're referring to, and I'll show you how to do that just in a little while. So your complete testimony should look something like this. You should start with your introduction, which should just be your name and your current district number that you reside in, whether that be your congressional district, your state senate district, or your assembly district. You're going to go into your analysis, then your hypothesis, and finish with your criticism. And then your outro, which can just be something so simple like, thank you for your time and consideration of my request. And there you go. You have a fantastic testimony all set and ready to go. So you have this testimony, you really, really like it. You can't wait to show it off. So the next thing that I'm going to teach you how to do is how to submit your testimony, and also how to sign up to, talk about your testimony in person. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go on the IRC website, which is nyirc.gov. It should take you to a page that looks exactly like this. Hopefully nothing has changed in the days that I took this screenshot, so it should look exactly like this. So you are going to want to go to this tab right over here that says meetings. There's a little arrow pointing to it. You're going to want to click on it. From there, you should get to this page. And the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're either going to sign up to attend a meeting or submit a testimony without attending a meeting. So first, we're going to go through the first option. So you're going to click on that, and you're going to have to make an account. That is a little scary. I know everybody has to make an account to do things sometimes, but I promise they do not spam you at all. I know that's sort of unheard of nowadays, but it's for a good reason. So you're going to put your first name, your last name, your email, password, confirm your password, and then you're all set and ready to go. So once you have registered or you have logged in, if you already have an account, you are going to get a page that looks exactly like this. And this is where the magic happens. So you're going to firstly choose what meeting you want to attend. So we're in Saratoga, I live in Troy, so I would also be going to the Capital Region meeting. So I chose Albany, which is going to be on November 1st. So you choose the meeting off a list, and then you have 3 options over here. You can attend the meeting in person and present your testimony at the meeting. You can attend virtually, so you can Zoom in and present virtually at the meeting. Or if you don't want to present at all, you can just sign up to attend in person. There's also a 4th option that isn't listed here, which is you could just watch the live stream without presenting and without showing up in person. So you could just pull it up on your laptop if you want. So after you choose which option you'd like to go to, you are going to choose a file that has your testimony on it. So take what you just wrote, either in a PDF, a Microsoft Word document, literally anything imaginable, and you're going to hook it up and link it onto this page. So after you do that, it's going to prompt you to fill out all your information. So as you can see here, I already made an account, so it has my first name, my last name already filled in for me. You could choose your title, an organization if you belong to one, your phone number, address, city, state, and zip code. And then after that, you can specify any special needs or accommodations if you're attending in person or virtually, which I think is very nice of them. And then you can choose your topic of testimony. So if you're going to be talking about the congressional maps, the state assembly maps, or the state senate maps, and then you choose your location. These are both optional, but they do help out the IRC. And it's always good to give as much information as you can, just so they remember. And then you just click this button right here, and you are all set and ready to testify in person, virtually in person, or just sit in on a meeting if you want. But that is not the only way you can get that information out there. So the other option is to submit a testimony without attending a meeting. So you're going to click on that. You're already logged in, you already made an account. So once you do that, it is going to direct you to the participate page. So it's going to send you to a page that looks exactly like this. And you have three options on this page. So the first one is to just send your comments. So once again, like we did with the previous page, you're going to choose what district you're talking about, what proposed map, and where you're from. Then you're going to choose a file with all your comments in it, or you could just copy and paste it into this little text box right over here. And then you can submit your comment, and then it is shared with the people at the IRC, and you are all set and ready to go in that way. The next thing that you can do is you can submit your own map. So if you have an idea of what your district should look like, you can use a mapping program like Representable, and you can choose a file and put that map on there and then put a little description on it and send it to the IRC. The third option is just sending them your testimony, but this is just if you don't want to present it. So this is a good option if you liked that 4-point plan, you want to have your opinion out there. It's sort of the same as comments, but it's just the testimony again. So you're going to once again choose what district you're talking about, choose the location that you're from, and then attach your testimony to the web file, and then you are all set and ready to go. So those are the three other ways that you don't have to testify in person, but you can still get your opinion out there. So this is a list of all of the meetings that are happening. Today was the first one in Buffalo. They had a live stream going on earlier, and I was watching that. And then I highlighted over here the one going on for the Capital Region in Albany, which is going to be on November 1st. So if you guys are interested in signing up for that or just submitting your comments, you can. But for those who aren't from the Capital Region, here is a list of all of the other meetings that are happening. And thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Oops, sorry about that.
Millie, we do have one in the chat, but I think you covered it, is that do you have to give your testimony in written form for the 3 minutes of oral testimony?
Yes, you do have to submit written testimony as well, even if you were going to talk in person. But if you don't want to talk, you could just submit your testimony virtually.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions?
What type of atmosphere is the in-person? That's a good question. It's very, I would say formal. Basically, usually you'll be in an auditorium, sometimes a theater of some sort. Your name will be called up and you will be given a microphone, and then you will present. So it's sort of, I guess the best way to describe it, maybe like a school board meeting, if you've ever been to one of those. Very straight to the point, very straightforward, nothing too crazy. How long it lasts it depends on how many people sign up to testify in person. So if 5 people sign up to testify, it won't last as long. If as 50 people who sign up to testify. So that really depends. But all testimonies are supposed to be 3 minutes. So hopefully it goes by very speedily.
Millie, I think we have at least one person here who has given testimony. I don't know if they want to speak about their experience or not. Does anybody who has testified want to give a summary of what it was like?
I testified at the earlier round, and you get 3 minutes, so you need to practice your presentation. I read mine any number of times before I kept on dropping extraneous ideas in words so I could get all my thoughts in 3 minutes. That's not very long. And the thing to, apparently this round will be done like the last round, and that there will be no give and take with the commission. The commission will receive your comments and thank you, but apparently they're not going to engage in any debate with anyone or explain anything about what they're doing.
Barb?
I also testified for the league in Saratoga County, and I would second what Steve has said. The thing that I did learn, though, is that even though you are limited to the 3 minutes, your testimony in the first round was allowed to be much longer, and you could submit maps. I thought asked that question, but it didn't get asked the same way I thought it was asked. And so I'd like to ask Millie and Steve if the written testimony has any limits, word limits, whatever.
As I understand it, you can extend your remarks to whatever length you wish, as long as you keep your actual time at the hearing to 3 minutes.
Yes,
Barb,
Steve's right. So that may be an option. If you have a lot more to say, you can submit comment or submit a testimony that is going to be longer than how you are going to orally present at the meeting.
The other thing I would say is it was really hard to figure out when you would speak. You got put into a room and then you noticed the people that you were with, but they were never the people that were called and that were testifying for a long, long time. So you waited after you were called for, I don't know, an hour and a half maybe before even you saw your group, and you didn't know if they'd lost track of you or what. So I found that disconcerting.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I mentioned before, the more people that you have present, the longer it will go on. And, often it is a waiting game to get your 3 minutes in there. But, it's always good, and your testimony is always valued, especially when it comes to redistricting. And that's why, if you wanted to do it virtually on Zoom, that might be a better option than instead of waiting in a room for hours at a time, you could wait on your couch. So if you don't feel like waiting like that, there are other options, thankfully.
Okay, any other questions?
I had put one in the chat, and that was, I wondered if I could, even though I might end up testifying in Saratoga, I also have a summer camp up in Hamilton County, and because it's right on the line with Herkimer County, and we have a shared school district and police force, I am concerned that those two counties are not in the same congressional district for funding and those kinds of things. Is there any limit on the number of districts you could testify in?
I do not know. I believe that it is encouraged that you testify for the area that you live in most of the year, just because that's usually the area that you're most familiar with. So I'm not sure what the true answer by the IRC is, but I can definitely email you when I know something solid, unless Steve, you know differently.
No, I think that they would probably anticipate that it would be from the person's where they vote from, where they're registered to vote. But since it's not limited to voters in any case, I don't know if they have a rule.
I say try it, Barbara.
I'm gonna.
You know, they're not likely to reject testimony. If you want to speak twice, they're probably going to notice. But if you just want to submit testimony, then they'll probably accept it without question.
Someone in the chat asked if it's helpful to contact our legislative representatives.
By the way, at the end of my slideshow, there were the addresses for all the representatives, the current representatives. So if the deck is shared with the participants, then they'll have those addresses and phone numbers and all the websites there.
We will send out both slideshows to everyone who's here tonight. Actually, everyone who's registered as well. So we will definitely have that, and then you'll have the legislators. But question? Is it helpful?
I do not think at this point of the redistricting process, it would be your top priority. I think later on it might be, but as for now, your efforts should probably be focused on the IRC submitting testimony and comment and proposed maps to them. But Steve, you may have a different opinion on that.
Yes, but I'll go with yours for now.
Okay, last call for questions. Okay. All right, I wanted to point out that tonight's presentation was in part brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County, and in part brought to you by the One Person, One Vote Coalition, which is a coalition put together specifically around redistricting and having everyone represented through that process. It involves the leagues from Saratoga, Rensselaer, Schenectady, and Albany counties, as well as the Capital Area Urban League. And it's a coalition that meets every other week, and it's open to anyone. So if you're interested in that, put a note in the chat or contact your local league and you can get involved.
There is a question.
Oh, good.
And it was, what do you think the likelihood of the state legislature rejecting maps twice and drawing their own? I think the legislature is going to draw its own maps, whatever path it takes for them to get there. That's my belief. It's been my belief from the beginning, and I think that's what will happen. Unless the courts take over.
Well, I'll ask, if that happens, does that lay the groundwork for another amendment?
Good question. It ought to. Now, I'm on record in saying I opposed the 2014 amendments because I thought that they were a charade. I thought that the people who began the process, like Ed Koch and his folks, thought they were going to have a reform, and it was simply subverted and taken away from them. And what appeared on the ballot was an intentional charade. and that the legislature never intended to give up any power, and they haven't. They've made it more difficult. They've made it more complicated. They've made it less open. But so in order to have a fair redistricting process, you'd have to have a different process than we have now. I personally think that the best solution would be a national standard. Because, you know, I'm on two minds of this, and I don't want to see New York unilaterally disarm when it comes to redistricting Congress. So I don't want to see other states, you know, going whole hog in one direction and we don't respond in the other direction. But if there was a national standard, that problem wouldn't arise anymore.
So a related question in the chat is, what do you think will happen to the 21st district?
That's a hard one too. Can't say. There's so much, that's such an important district from a lot of people's point of view, both within the state and outside in Washington, that there's going to be a lot of attention. It'd be really hard though to draw that district in a way that makes it difficult. Well, no, I can't go there. I'll take that back. It's going to be difficult.
Okay, anyone else? Anything you want to add, Steve or Millie?
The website that I would think is probably most useful, if you want to just look at one to see how the 6 plans stack up, and it's been mentioned in the chat, and I would reiterate, the newyork.redistrictingandyou.org site is really you know, you don't need a lot of mapping experience and statistical experience. It's got a lot of good features that are just click on to see the options. And I would highly recommend it to anyone and everyone.
I would also really love to point out that on the State League's website, we have an interacting mapping tool that you guys can play around with. It has overlays of all of the current congressional, state, senate, and assembly districts, as well as all of the proposed congressional, senate, and assembly districts as well. So you guys can play around with that, compare and contrast. It's really helpful, especially when you are preparing testimony.
Okay, I just want to add that we really, the League and the Coalition, feel very strongly that everyone should think about preparing testimony. Testify, testify, testify. And it doesn't have to be a 3-minute presentation, as Millie said. It could be as simple as a drawn map. It could be a 10-sentence comment about keeping your community together that you see as your community. It doesn't have to be an elaborate, but as many voices as can be heard as possible is helpful. There is another event next week on Wednesday, the 27th, from the One Person, One Vote Coalition. It's called A Line in the Street. It's a short film about gerrymandering and a discussion. And so that will be another great event. And I think that's all we have. Last questions? No? Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. This was very informative. Thank you, Millie. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
See you all another time. Oh, and if you have if you want help testimony, the League will help you. Contact your local League, or definitely the Saratoga League, just president@lwvsaratoga.org. And we have folks who will help you put your testimony together, whether it's a map or a written testimony or a verbal testimony. We can help out with that. That's it. Sorry. Good night.